I'm going to show you how you can use the Google suite of tools like Docs, Forms, Slides, and even Sheets to facilitate learning activities in a Google Classroom if you are interested in that. So first, the assignment that I created here for the parts of speech activity number 1, I used Google Docs to create this assignment. So if you want to create an assignment in Google Docs, so students will each receive a copy of it and they can complete the work in here. All you have to do is create a new document. So if you're in your Google Drive, you just hit New, Google Doc, and it'll open up a new document for you to use. And you create the assignment within the Google document. So here I have students thinking about nouns, verbs, and adjectives as parts of speech, and I want for them to list examples of each of the parts of speech. So I created a table. I just clicked Insert Table, and I selected the numbers of rows and columns that I wanted to use. And from there, get out of here. I created this table and this piece of the assignment for students. Sorry, I'm using all like ELA examples, but as you're watching this, hopefully you can think of some things maybe in your own content area for your own classroom that maybe you would have students do. Anything that you teach them and you're asking them to just identify examples, that's here. Then I want students to start applying some of the information that they learned about these parts of speech. So I'm asking students to write 3 sentences and include all 3 of those parts of speech in each sentence. And I want for them to label the nouns blue, the verbs red, and the adjectives green. So here students have space that they can type a response. Whoops. And then once they type the response, they can use this toolbar to go through and highlight words in their sentences and change the colors of it. And so they can complete that right here. And then for the next part, I wrote a paragraph for them, and I want for them to change the paragraph. I want for them to add more nouns into the paragraph to help clarify what's happening. I want for them to use stronger verbs and descriptive adjectives. So I want them to edit this. So they'll read the paragraph and then they'll create a new one and write their changes here. And then I want for them to explain the differences between what I gave them and what they created here. And they can write all this information on here. The way that I set it up in the classroom, if you watch that video, was that each student is receiving their own copy of the document. So they'll be able to write on here, and then whenever they're finished, up in the top corner, if they access this through Google Classroom, there should be a submit or a turn in button. And then students will just be able to turn in their work from there. And so that's how you can use, that's an example of how you can use Google Docs to facilitate an activity. And really, you can create anything in here. You can put, you can make a document that's just questions from an article that they've read, or anything like that. But that's how you use Docs. Using forms is good. I like using forms for quizzes. It could be like a pre-assessment or a post-assessment, or anything that you want here. To create a quiz, all you do is go to New, and you have to go to More and go to Google Forms and click Google Forms. It'll create something that looks like this for you. You have to set it up to be a quiz though, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's just say I wanted to create a vocabulary quiz. There are many things you could do with this. I could do the traditional, like define the word archaic and then give 4 examples just of text of the word archaic. But you can also use pictures in Google Forms. So I asked which picture best demonstrates the word archaic. And then when I go here, I don't know why it says option 2. That's weird. So for option 1, I put images in here, and I'm not sure why it's not showing up right now, but if I wanted to keep going, there it goes. So if I wanted to add another option, you see that it gives me the add image option right here, and that's just what I clicked to put these images in here, okay? And so that's an example of setting up a question. In order to make a form, which essentially is just a survey, so like when you completed the needs assessment survey, all I did was create those questions in Google Forms just like this, and then I sent out the survey. But to make it a quiz, you have to go up to this settings function, and you have to set the settings. Notice here it says general, presentation, and quizzes. If you're just sending out a survey, you work within the general option right here. But to make it a quiz, you have to click quizzes, and you have to turn on make this a quiz. Now, this is a new option that Google Forms created this past summer. It's amazing. I wish I would have had this whenever I was in the classroom. But you can turn on locked mode. And what that will do is whenever students access this quiz on their Chromebooks, they will not be able to navigate to any other pages on the internet. They will only be allowed to work within the quiz that's on their screen. So I think that this could be a very, very beneficial option. And then I selected, once students finish this quiz, I want for them to be able to see their grade as soon as they're done. And I want for them to see missed questions, correct answers, and point values. If I make a quiz where there are like some short answer questions, I might select this option later after manual review, because a multiple choice quiz, you can set it up to grade automatically. But if you have some like open-ended questions, you might want to click this option, because you'll have to go in as an instructor and like read what they wrote and then assign it a grade. I'm not doing that right now though, so I'm going to click this and then I'm going to save it. What that does is it changes the look a little bit. You see up here now it says total points, and now you have an option for the kinds of questions that you can ask students. I'm just going to go with a simple multiple choice quiz right now, and then what I have to do is see down here it says answer key. I need to click on this, and then I need to select an answer. This is the correct answer. And we'll say that I'll make this question worth 2 points. And then I can click edit question, and that'll go back to the question side. But then I can see down here that I've made this question 2 points. I also need to go over here to required and turn this on. And that means the students have to answer this question before they can submit the quiz. If you click that for every question, that'll make sure the students won't be able to turn it in without answering all of the questions. So that helps with that. That's how you can set up some of the questions here. When students are done taking the quiz, you'll be able to see their responses. Here, it puts everything in a really nice like graphic for you. Kind of looks like this. This was the needs assessment. But you'll get some really good like graphical data based on what the students submit. So it's a pretty handy dandy tool. So that is something that you can assign to students through Google Classroom. So we looked at Docs, like completing an assignment in Docs. We looked at a quiz in Google Forms. And again, to assign these things, all you do is go to classwork and create an assignment, and then pull in whatever it is that you're working on. Like, here's the quiz I want students to take. And when I'm finished with all of this, maybe my quiz will be 30 points total. And you fill out the title and the assignment, and you can select the locked mode on Chromebooks, and you can assign it. So it's the same process. You're just creating some different things. Let's look at using Google Slides to facilitate some learning activities. Again, I'm using some ELA examples, but we could think of some other things to do. I used activities like this a lot in my classroom. This might be depending on the age of your students, deciding what to do. But for this, I actually want all of my students to contribute to the same document. So I created a Google Slide presentation. So in order to do that, I'm in my Google Drive. I click New, Google Slides, and it'll give me a template to start working with. And here, what I'm going to do is I want students to work on writing descriptively and writing descriptive sentences. So what I've done is some prep work on the back end where I have just put some images into Google Slides, and I'm going to assign each student an image they're going to work on. So let's say I have Sally in class. I'm going to assign Sally this Christmas tree. And I'm going to say you need to write like 2 or 3 descriptive sentences about this image that you see here. Make sure that you have some really strong adjectives in your descriptive sentence. And then for this slide, I'm going to assign Johnny. You're going to have this. That way, when students open the document, they know which slide they're supposed to go to, and that's the only slide that they're supposed to work on. And that way, students are doing one activity, but then they can see what everybody else is writing. It really helps people, especially students who maybe are struggling with the assignment. They can click through and look at what other students are doing to give them kind of an idea of what to do. I definitely assign slides to students before you give this, though. That way, students aren't fighting over. They're not fighting over like slides that they want to do. Like you assign them, and then it's good to go. So there are other ways that you can use an assignment like this. I'm thinking, maybe you put a different math problems on each of the slides, and you ask students to explain in writing how they would solve that math problem. That could be an example. TDA instruction, I'm thinking if you put like textual evidence, a different piece of textual evidence on each slide, and then ask the students to explain how that evidence supports a prompt. That would be a good way to assess how they're, like the level of analysis that they're able to put together. And they're not writing an entire essay, but you're able to see if they are able to analyze just based on the information that they have here. So those are just a couple of different examples for how you can do this. To set up this assignment, I would go to the Google Classroom, classwork, create assignments, and I could put like descriptive sentences. I could put some instruction, find the slide that I have assigned to you, and create a 3-sentence, if I can spell, description of the image on your slide. Let's say I'm going to make this a 5-point assignment. I can select a due date. This is, I've already created a parts of speech assignment, but now I'm going to create a topic, descriptive writing. And I'm going to go into Drive, and I'm going to find that presentation I made and add it. I don't want students to only view the file. Now, here's an example of where I don't want to make a copy for each student because I actually want them to be able to see each other's work here. So I'm going to click Students Can Edit the File, and that will give all students the opportunity to edit that one document. And then I can assign that from there. So that would be an example of how to use Google Slides. Other ways that you can use Google Slides, I've seen a couple of elementary teachers do things like this. Now, I just created one example of this. You could create as many different slides here, but if I want to have like some kind of shapes activity, with Google Slides, it's easy to manipulate what's on the slide. So you can create something that's like drag the green word to match the shapes, and then students can come in here and they can take what you have set up for them, and then they can move and manipulate the slides around to complete activities. So that's something that I have seen work in an elementary classroom. And you can create as many of those kinds of activities as you'd like. In Google Classroom, you would want to here, see how the topic, it created a new topic for me. I'm going to delete that though. You would want to select the option when creating an assignment there to make a copy for each student, because you'll want to see how each individual student completes that activity. So that is an example of how you might use Google Slides. Finally, and I just found this activity. I haven't used it. I haven't seen it work in person in an elementary classroom before, but it might be something that you would want to try. This is using Google Sheets as an activity, and this is a template where students are considering how to make 5s, make 10s, and make 20s. And this template can change. So using 2 colors only, how many ways can you make 5? So students come in and say, okay, I can use 2 colors. And to use their colors, they'll use these codes at the top to help them to be like, all right, well, if I have 3 reds and 2 oranges, that's going to make 5. So here's a red, here's a red, here's a red, here's an orange, here's an orange. They need to type an equation in here. So 3 plus 2, and then they have to check their answer. Okay, 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, so that is a way that I can make 5. So that's how they demonstrate that. Then they can scroll down and be like, all right, well, what if I only use 2 reds and 3 oranges? Now I have 2 plus 3. And when I think of that, when I think of that and to put it together, does that make 5? Yes. And then students can keep scrolling down and think of all the ways that they can to make 5. And then they can turn in that template to you. So that's a way that you could use Google Sheets with students. I was not a very big Google Sheets user, just because in the ELA classroom we didn't use Google Sheets a lot, but clearly here you can see how it might be beneficial in the math classroom. Same thing, if you're creating this as an assignment in Google Classroom, you'll want to make a copy for each student when you assign it, so that they are able to do the work here. So that was just it was very quick docs, forms, slides, and sheets, just a couple of different examples of how you can use those in Google Classroom.